Welcome to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shade Curry, and I believe every divorced woman deserves a romantic relationship where she feels safe, loved, and cherished. You can create the most amazing life after divorce, and I will teach you how. Hey, hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I am your host, Shade Curry, and I have here on Zoom with me a special guest, Coco Madari. Coco is a fellow coach, colleague, friend, client. We have been on this multi-year journey together. Coco is a BIPOC queer, multi-talented artist. They are a performer, singer, songwriter, double certified coach, and they help highly sensitive persons juggle multiple creative endeavors at one time. Welcome to the podcast, Coco.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I was so jealous seeing all the people on your all these amazing people on your podcast, and I was like, where am I?
I'm so glad you reached out so that we could tell your story.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Where do we begin?
Well, I was just going to say, we worked together for about a year.
Yes.
And when I hired you, I wanted to find my person. And then I think through the work we did together and just in following my own journey, realizing that I am polyamorous and I want to date multiple people, and I want to juggling or playing with the idea of either being solo polyamorous, where I don't have a primary partner, or having multiple primary partners and what that could look like. So yeah, no, it definitely since even just working together, there's been a lot of transformation and change and all of that stuff. So
yeah, I mean, we can start at the beginning, because I think one of the things that, had you reaching out to me was the fact that your relationship at the time had just broken up. And it was similar, even though you weren't married and it wasn't a divorce. The relationship had some narcissistic abuse that was happening. Yeah. And I remember just us talking even before we started working together. So a phone call, you had a lot of questions about is this bad? If this is happening? Let's start there. You want to start with that first relationship, kind of what you were experiencing. How long were you in that relationship, and what eventually led to the breakup?
Yeah. So I actually want to touch on the relationship before then first, because that relationship really was the catalyst for me getting into therapy and then realizing the benefits of therapy and just totally changing my life, and then finding coaching and then all of that. So whenever people ask me how did you realize that you were a coach? It was all because of this first relationship where, a month before we broke up, we were looking at rings together and trying on rings. And so, even though I haven't been quote unquote married officially, I have had multiple relationships that were yes, we're getting married, we are each other's person, and there was that commitment there. So yeah, where I started in terms of my romantic relationships was just a complete disaster. Nothing less than a complete abusive, controlling, possessive disaster was my first relationship, where there was just so much daily abuse that I look back now and can't believe that I even took it for a second, let alone for 3.5 years. And once I actually found coaching after, that first relationship ended, and I found coaching and was doing better for myself, I met this other person who kind of, he was less so. I mean, there definitely was abuse, more so just like making fun of me and like putting me down. Definitely is abuse for sure, but just a different kind.
Mm-hmm.
And more so on the neglect side. That was the main thing. Like he didn't care about me and all that. And I think at that time, I kind of wanted that because the relationship before that was so controlling. I felt so suffocated all of the time. And having someone who was ignoring me actually felt safer. So,
Yeah, I remember you had said there was, and I'm trying to remember the situation where it was almost like there was almost like an agreement to not be committed. And you,
yeah,
if you could, I remember that, and it was like,
yeah,
yes, you were like, yes, because then that felt like, oh, right,
it
because
felt like it could be
that,
polyamory. Yeah.
like, it's well, but you wanted a commitment, but you agreed
Mm.
to not having a commitment because it felt safer than the other relationship where you had a commitment that felt like control.
Yeah, yeah. I think I was open to polyamory. I wanted to do it right though. I wanted to like have conversations about the relationships that we had. I wanted to have parameters and all that. But for him, it was more like, I'm going to have these other casual relationships and I'm going to do what I want.
Mhm.
And you're just going to deal with it. And then I'm going to thought work myself into feeling okay. So that's when I found thought work. And so I really gaslit myself into like having a happy relationship with this person.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a little bit because I think this
Yeah.
happens to a lot of women.
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of women who are considering leaving a marriage or have left a marriage, and then they get introduced to concepts like, well, another person doesn't make you happy.
Mm-hmm.
They're not responsible for your feelings. You're responsible for your feelings. You're responsible for your happiness. And then they turn that against themselves to try to convince themselves that they should be in a relationship. Like, what's the balance there?
Yeah. So first of all, I don't identify as a woman, but I was definitely socialized as a woman. And I don't even like, yes, they use it against themselves, but also it is something that is really drilled in. Like I remember I had just read about someone saying that they witnessed a coaching call with this specific coach that the person was talking about basically who was in an abusive relationship. And this coach was basically telling them that it's all their thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's not even like fully, we're just doing it to ourselves. It is something that is also drilled in to us in certain healing spaces, in the media, all those kinds of things. So what is the line? That's a good that's a good question. I think when I was in that space, I was so proud of how I could create this relationship with my thoughts. You hear from some coaches saying like your relationship with someone is your thoughts about them. And so if you change your thoughts about them, you change your relationship. So I changed my thoughts. I did all the things. And so I was able to create some positive emotions through that, gaslighting. And I was really proud of myself that I was able to just like create an amazing relationship with anyone. Right? Like you can create an amazing relationship with anyone. Um, and I think the turning point for me in the shift was really starting to get in touch with my body, first of all, and all of the like anger and resentment that I was harboring because I was, he would do or say something that was like putting me down or whatever, and I would like change my thoughts around it. But then the wound has not disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
The hurt hasn't disappeared. The truth hasn't gone away. And there was that piece, but then there also was a piece of just having a coach who was my sex coach at the time. I was getting coached by her, and I was telling her about how when I was like, trying to like start something sexy with him, and I like kind of I sat on him and like made a funny face, and then he was like, if you're trying to be sexy right now, it's not working. And I was like telling her this with the intention of working through it for myself so I could feel better. And she said to me, we can work on this as much as we want, but at the end of the day, do you want to be with someone who talks to you like that? And that just blew my mind. I was like, oh.
Like, I have a choice in the kind of person that I am with.
Yeah. And she was like, it would be different if you were married to this person and you knew that you wanted to commit to the relationship, and you really wanted to work through this. You were really committed to working through it. But at the time, our relationship was like, we were quote unquote polyamorous. It wasn't real polyamory, and then we became monogamous. And then we were at the place of like opening up our relationship, quote unquote. But again, it wasn't really like something that was communicated or whatever. He just wanted a casual relationship, essentially, where he wasn't providing any sort of like support or anything, just wanted to have the good parts of the relationship, he said, which is essentially, the only certain parts of me, only certain parts of, only the fun parts of the relationship, none of the work. And so then that really like helped me see that was a really important question to think about. And then the answer was obviously no. And then that's when I ended that relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What role did, your childhood, how you grew up, how you were raised have on the relationships you were in early on?
Yeah, totally. Well, my first relationship was essentially my relationship with my mom. It was so similar. Their birthdays were 2 days apart. Both of them are Aries. Both of them like very, very similar in so many ways. And it was just constant fighting, constant abuse, constant drama. And just feeling like just crying so much, so many tears, so much like despair, so much, all of that. And so it was just, that's what felt like love. That's what felt like home. And I remember actually thinking that, like, I wasn't in therapy. I wasn't doing any of that. Like, he didn't want me to go to therapy. We had lots of big fights about it. I don't even know what his reasoning was. I know what the real reason was, obviously, because he didn't want me to be healthy. But I remember knowing that I didn't really love him and that I didn't actually want to be with him. But something that my birth mother used to say was like, be with someone who is less attractive than you, and then they'll never cheat on you. He did cheat on me, but
yeah. So he was less attractive. So in a sense, I
wasn't attracted to him. It's not that I wasn't attracted to him. I remember I was thinking about this today, about how my body just felt like I needed, like, it was just a huge no. But then I would like gaslight myself listening to love songs to try to convince myself to love him because he wanted me. And I had been so burned in high school and whatever around dudes who play with me and like, you know, reject me and whatever it is. And I just felt like, and what he also told me is that I can't do anything better. It's like, oh, he would say, oh, I treat you so well. No one's going to treat you like this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that's such a common line.
Such a common
line. You know, no one else is gonna ever want you.
And then they tell you how good they treat you, even though they're not treating you well.
Yes. You know, and a lot of that comes down to, you know, it is gaslighting. That word means so many things to so many people.
Yeah.
I like to think of it as taking advantage of a person not owning their own reality.
Yeah. Taking advantage of a person's self-doubt.
Yes. And of course, you know, people socialized as women tend to have a lot of self-doubt because we're groomed to second guess ourselves. Are you sure you want to do that? Do you want to do that? Are you going to wear that?
And also, like, you are a woman. Right? Like being conditioned to believe that you are a certain gender as well, right? Like I was already in so much self-doubt because I am trans. And I was, you know, putting myself in this I am a woman box, right? So I was just riddled with self-doubt. And and so there was that one. And then the second relationship was my relationship with my dad. Their birthdays were a day apart or 2 days apart. Same thing. Narcissist. Didn't actually care about me at all. Just used me to make himself look good. You know, like lots and lots and lots of like, you should feel confident about yourself. Like I'm only attracted to you when you're confident, but then I'm also going to put you down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was pretty much exactly like the universe was like handed it to me on a silver platter. It was like, here's your relationship with your mom. And then here's your relationship with your dad. And then the next one was like my relationship with my sister. And it was just like, got a lot of insight into, you know, and got to explore the memories that had been repressed through those romantic relationships that mirrored those familial relationships.
Yeah. So what were the shifts that you had along the way, like moving through these relationships and then coming to terms with, hey, I need to do some work?
Well, I knew I'm in my first relationship that I was fucked up. Like I remember having the thought, I am fucked. I am not okay. I need help. And so I like, as soon as he broke up with me, because I wasn't doing something that he said, like, oh, if you don't do this, I'm breaking up with you. I went into therapy like right away because I knew he was going to try to get me back within like a month. And so I was like, I need to get my head right. I need to be at least in a place where when he comes back and he tries to pull all the stops to try to get me back, I am ready to say no. And sure enough, he did come back and then try to get me back. And then I was able to say no. It wasn't easy. I thought about him every day. It was so painful. The whole breakup was so painful.
What changed that made you able to say no when he wanted you back? Do you wonder exactly how divorced women just like you are meeting eligible men who want a real relationship and a commitment? They're doing it by dating with their core values. Your core values are the GPS that lead you to the partner you've been looking for. When you use your core values on dating apps, text messages, and at social events, you will easily connect with your true match partner without chasing, settling, or wasting time with non-committal men. I have taught exactly how to do this in the 2-hour Core Values Dating Blueprint course available on my website, shadecurry.com/dating. That's sadecurry.com/dating. You will learn exactly how to identify your core values and use them on your dating profile, how to ask the right questions via text, and how to tell the right stories on dates so that you attract the right people and repel those who aren't right for you. If you're ready to meet your true match, hop over to sadecurry.com/dating or click the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode.
I think it was just having that physical distance from him.
Mm-hmm.
I had that physical distance. I was reading a lot of self-help books. And then I asked him if he wanted to meet up with me. And I, at the time, was kind of like, I was like at a weak spot where I was like thinking, oh, maybe we can like work on it, blah, blah, blah. So I bought him these books that I had bought. And so so we met up. And then I remember when we met up, just my stomach just was like, it just shriveled up into a raisin. And I felt like my breathing got shallower. I lost my appetite. I couldn't eat. My nervous system was just completely hijacked. And so that was like the first time I actually noticed that. Because I had that distance, then seeing them again, it's like, oh, this is how I was feeling the whole time. And so yeah, just having that awareness and just continuing to just focus and keep focusing on my self-development and on my own growth, that led me to the next relationship, which was also bad, but it was bad in a different way. At least it wasn't bad in the same way.
Yeah. How was it different? This is the third relationship.
No, this was the second.
The second. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So between the first and the second was therapy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then between that, oh, right, I forgot about the one who ended up stalking me. Remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the one after the second one was with a woman, and we were only together for a month, but she thought that I was an ancient god, and there was this whole like spiritual mentorship happening, and lots of weird shit. So I think, I like the fact that throughout the whole experience, I was always still working on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that in every new relationship, things were at least different. They might have been unhealthy in different ways, but at least I wasn't repeating the exact same patterns. I was growing. I was learning new things.
Yeah. Were they getting better? Would you say the relationships got better as you grew?
It was still shit, just smelled different.
So then what changed, and when? When did you feel like, oh yeah, I've moved from terrible relationships into a more healthy way of thinking and being in relationships?
I think, well, it's only happened very recently, but I think it's in realizing my addictive tendencies when it comes to relationships, and having I think more healthy friendships has helped me to not feel so lonely, and therefore feel like I need to be in a relationship, and therefore taking things too quickly, and then having things not be healthy as a result.
Yeah. Can you explain what the addictive nature of, being in a relationship, being addicted to a relationship, what does that feel like or look like, if you remember?
Oh yeah. It feels like you definitely get a high. Maybe you're ruminating about, fantasizing about them a lot, and it's feeling good, but then you end up with this feeling of anxiety or attachment or wanting to, or desperation and wanting to reach out to them, wanting them to reach out to you, but then it doesn't feel good anymore. It's almost like you took your drug, you're happy, and then now you're starting to feel the come down. And then you want more of the drug.
Yeah.
So it's very, very, very similar.
Yeah.
Versus more healthy relationships, it's just a longer, it feels like it just takes longer. It's more steady. It's more based on like actual intimacy versus this like I have to have you now.
Yeah.
Type of feeling.
Yeah. The pressure or the high stakes. There are no high stakes around being with the person, or there is not a lot of meaning about, I think a lot of the root of that is having it mean something about you to be in a relationship with a particular person.
And I'm actually reading right now about highly sensitive people in love. And I'm a highly sensitive person. And one thing that it was talking about in the book was how highly sensitive people can sometimes have that feeling of high stakesness when it comes to interacting with or flirting with people from quote unquote the opposite sex, or like whoever you're, I guess, interested in. How that actually can happen and is something that is not only a part of it, but that can be worked through. Right. I think regardless of whether the other human is healthy or not, we still have to like take the responsibility for ourselves to be able to notice when we're starting to get into that place of things are starting to feel high stakes. Things are starting to feel like I'm starting to feel desperate. I'm starting to feel like I'm wanting to attach. And then like working through it with a therapist or, with whoever.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I think there's a lot of shame in the cultural narrative around being a person who maybe attaches too quickly or has that tendency. Or having an attachment style that, presents in that way.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons I don't talk about attachment styles a lot, just because it's another thing that we tend to use against ourselves. So now we have an anxious attachment style. And so now there's something wrong with us that we got to go run off to fix.
Yeah.
Before we can be in a healthy relationship versus, first of all, I'm human. My brain is going to do weird things. And if my brain does weird things in a certain way, if it does try to attach to people too quickly, I can just be like, oh, okay, this is what my brain does.
Yeah.
And we can just make it neutral, be self-aware, and create a path, or what you call a path, a protocol, a practice, create space where we give ourselves the room and the tools to make better choices, even if we present in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And just having this conversation is like making me realize too remember how complicated it is being human.
Yes.
It's like so complicated. There's so many things. And I'm just floored at how many people can like live out their lives without getting help on the complexity of their psyche and are able to still function. Yes. Or seem to function. We don't know what happens closed doors, but
yeah, I think, if I were to look at myself before personal development, before coaching, before therapy, you just kind of on autopilot.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking too. Yeah.
You're kind of on autopilot, you're kind of numb.
Yeah.
Kind of just going through the motions, checking the boxes.
Yeah.
And if nothing bad happens, or some
Well, you
light
do have an
doesn't come in.
underlying feeling of anxiety, though. Like there is an undercurrent of, at least for me, of like
Mhm.
doom and unhappiness.
I don't know if
But
that's the same for everyone. That's what's scary about it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
think everyone feels that nudge underneath.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm a highly sensitive person. So I think
Yeah.
that me functioning on autopilot costs me more. Like
Right.
it takes a bigger toll. And I remember having moments of just like sitting in university in a class, and then suddenly I couldn't see, or suddenly I felt like I was having a panic attack, and I just like tried to stuff it down, like just like this really this like this can't happen right now. We're shutting it down. And yeah, I think for me it was just like a focus on achievement was my biggest, like, this is how we're gonna just what we're gonna focus on, what we're gonna keep me in autopilot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not the same for everyone.
Yeah. And I remember when we worked together, we didn't approach the work from a place of you being a highly sensitive person. But looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense, because we worked through your childhood trauma. We worked through friendships, because for a while you
Yep.
were looking for your person, but then also building community. I think a lot of the
Yeah.
work we did was not necessarily to find a person, even though that
Yeah.
you were open and wanted that, but was
Yeah.
to build community, was to find where you belonged
Mhm.
and to create that safety to be around people.
Yeah.
And now that we're having these conversations a little more recently, having worked way back, it makes sense that building community was such a journey for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was so challenging. Like it was challenging to being in an environment, a family environment where I was being bullied, and I was the scapegoat and the punching bag, the emotional punching bag, the verbal abuse punching bag. What else am I going to do when I have friends? Right? I'm going to have friends who also treat me terribly. And um I remember, looking back now, I think there were always people who cared about me. There were always people who I could have had a healthy relationship with, but I was too focused on trying to get those people who treated me badly to like me, that I was not able to have those kinds of relationships. Like throughout my whole journey, there were always people. And actually, I met someone who, at Pride Festival, I performed at Pride in Vancouver, and during at the like Pride parade, the week after I performed, I saw someone who I knew from elementary school, and when I saw them, I was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, this person! They're like super sweet and just a solid human." And I totally like forgot.
Yeah.
And then she messaged me and she's like, "Yeah, I remember like you were like such a good friend and like you're a solid person." I was like, "You're a solid person."
Yeah. Yeah. And,
Right?
and there's
Yeah.
an explanation, for that. Like, as you
Mhm.
know, it's our brain just gets so caught up in looking for danger and trying
Mhm.
to prevent danger. Danger looks like the most toxic person in the room.
Mhm.
And when you've had trauma and all of the things, you're so focused on making sure that that person isn't going to hurt you,
Mm.
that there's no room in your brain, there's no attention left over
Yeah.
for the people who are not dangerous, the good people, the healthy people, the nice
Yeah.
people, the people who want you to belong with them.
Yeah.
There's no room to pay them any attention. And your brain doesn't even want to, because it's like, well, these people are fine. They're not going to hurt me. So I'll just
Mhm.
ignore them
Yeah.
and focus on this person and make sure that they don't hurt me. And we can
Totally.
do that for so long. Narcissistically abusive relationships are the same way. Abusive situations are the same way. Women who are in abusive marriages
Yeah.
tend to neglect their children,
Mm.
even
Yes.
if they are trying to protect their children.
Yeah.
They tend to neglect to nurture their children or to be emotionally available because they're so busy trying to make sure that this abusive person doesn't hurt everybody.
Oh, that's such a good point. Such a good point. Yeah. And I was also thinking about also at Pride, I saw someone else who I knew in elementary school, who I didn't like, who wasn't really a safe person and who was kind of like a frenemy person who would, whatever. But I saw them too. And then they were like, kind of felt like they were in the background in my mind. Like they were kind of like a shadow person. And I was like developing these other relationships with people and they felt bright to me, and it was such a huge shift to not only not engage with those type of people, but not even really notice them.
Yeah.
That's huge.
That is huge. That's a huge shift.
Yeah.
What has community look like for you now? Because I want to hear about that process of building your network, building friendships. People who go through divorce often have to rebuild community, often have to rebuild friendships. What has that journey looked like for you?
Yeah. Well, when I cut out my whole family and moved to Vancouver Island, I cut out a lot of the people who I knew in Vancouver, partly because my nervous system was really fucked up and I just didn't feel safe at all. And I was like, I don't want anyone to know where I am. I don't want anyone to know where I'm going. And this is just what I'm doing. So, so I did that. So then I got here and I was just like, oh, I know no one. And, yeah. And then, got into a relationship and then that ended and then I had no one again. And the turning point for me was when I became suicidal, when I became seriously suicidal and wanted to kill myself. And, I thought, who am I going to reach out to? And I just started that process of reaching out to people who I thought I could trust. And then from there, I just haven't stopped reaching out whenever I needed help or support or any of that. And through that, I became a healthier person. And so when I went back to Vancouver, I was able to like reconnect with people who I severed the bond with. And I like explained to them what was happening with me. And, we were able to, have a conversation about it and reconcile about it. And, I'm still open to having conversations about it. But then that helped me to see how much community was there for me the whole time.
Yeah.
Right? It's that thing of when you're wrapped up in these toxic relationships, these all-encompassing codependent relationships, you don't see the community that is always there, that is always waiting for you.
Yeah. And you had spent quite some time, I think 2021, maybe 2022, working on your ability to reach out, your ability to intentionally create relationships. Doing that.
And also to know, like it was just mind blowing to me to know that that's what you kind of have to do.
Yes. They don't just happen.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that's why it hasn't been happening.
I'm marveling because you deliberately worked on those skills, literally practiced those skills. Okay, here's the kind of people. And it was a lot of trial and error and practicing and doing. And I want people who are creative. You wanted to work with people who are creative, people who were in music and entertainment. And you explored many different communities during that time.
I did.
Before you moved.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, wow. And then when you found yourself in a whole new place, not knowing anyone, it was literally back to basics.
Yeah. Back to square one.
We use that against ourselves. We just take it personally, like, oh, I don't have friends. There must be something wrong with me. Not realizing that was never anything wrong with us.
Yeah.
We might have been in an environment that gave us messages that there was something wrong.
Yeah.
And if we could shift those messages and realize, oh no, this is a very neutral process.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's a very neutral process. Yeah, me and this really badass Black woman bookkeeper were having like a little virtual coffee the other day, and we were talking about money. We were talking about how making money is just a boring process of figuring out what works and trying things and just like being consistent. Like that's basically with anything. And it's the same thing with art. It's the same thing with music. You know, music is awesome, but I'm learning how to produce. I'm learning how to like drum with my fingers, and I'm learning how to like make a song. It's like, you know, can be kind of boring. And just like, let's just
dating is the same way.
Yeah.
On apps and you swipe.
Yeah.
And if you're activated while you're doing that, then we got to take a step back to the healing and the emotional recovery and all those things. But when we're doing it right, it's actually quite boring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Creating friendships is quite boring. It's like, okay, am I a match for this person? Am I not a match? Oh, we tried that out. We had coffee. Not quite the right vibe. Okay, great. Nothing against that person. Nothing against me. Mm-hmm. Let's have coffee with someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what it is.
Yeah. And, you know, and I'm just really proud of the way you've embodied those skills just over the years. Like,
thank you.
Like, okay, collaboration was another one. You walked through a lot of collaboration projects, some that worked, some that didn't work.
Yeah.
Some within romantic relationships that didn't work, and then some, you know, that were more fruitful.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to think of one that worked. I'm like, which one worked?
And that brings me to this question. Where are you now? Where are you now with romantic relationships, with friendships, with feeling safe in relationship or in community?
Yeah.
With all of the work that you've done, you talk about solo polyamory. What does that look like for you? So what does the big R relationship look like for you?
Well, now with romantic relationships, I'm noticing myself fall in love and just enjoying it and not making it mean like we're going to be in a relationship now, or this is going to be my only person. And therefore, because they're my only person, I have to think about, okay, are we actually a match, or this is, you know, whatever. It's just like, no, I can just like enjoy. And I'm noticing myself enjoying the whole process of getting to know people versus like, let's try to get to the sex, or let's try to get to we're in a partnership now. Let's try, like, you know, trying to make it go somewhere instead of it just being like, let me just enjoy this right now.
Sounds like so you're not being attached to the outcome.
Yes. So much of that, just like, this relationship is going to be whatever it's meant to be. It could be friendship. It could be we go our separate ways. It could be whatever. And even the people who I have had relationships with here, where I live now, that didn't work out, I'm still open to like whatever can come from just being in this similar vicinity and being humans who are growing. And I'm just more open to whatever things might look like.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love the phrase being open to humans who are growing. Because it feels and it sounds to me more like enjoying the journey. The person who is in my space at this point in time, who is in a friendship space or is in a romantic relationship space, and I'm enjoying that now for whatever it is.
Exactly. Or like, even, you know, I don't really like this person, and I don't have to, and also that might change. Right? Or this person doesn't seem to like me, and that's fine too, but we'll see what happens.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, I love that you brought that up, because the reason we sometimes have those hard, like, okay, I don't like this person right now. It seems like they don't like me. Got to make a decision. Got to do something about it. It comes from a lack of safety.
Yeah.
It feels like something bad is going to happen if we don't deal with whatever that thing is right now. Cut it off. Have a gigantic conversation. Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah,
Feeling like one has to
exactly.
control that, one has to do something, comes from not feeling safe to just be.
Exactly. And I think like when that comes up, I think it needs to be addressed, but not necessarily with that other person. Like that sort of the feeling of urgency, the feeling of I need to deal with this now, or I'm, yeah, exactly that. But just like going within and then like creating that like calm and safety, giving your nervous system what it needs, but being open also to the lessons too. Like there was this one person who I'm starting to develop a friendship with, and we're collaborating. And after hanging out with them, a couple days later, I started feeling angry about a certain part of a conversation that we had, or that, and then I started to be like, well, fuck that person. Well, I don't want to have anything to do with that person, like fuck them, blah blah blah. And so I just kind of like let myself be in that process of being like, well, fuck them, we're not friends anymore, clearly, and whatever. And then I just let myself be there. And then once I let myself just like let them go, then I was like, oh, okay, this part resolved, maybe I need to communicate this. And then
So mature.
Yeah. Well, I'm a Gemini too, so I have to remember that like sometimes I'm just like, fuck y'all, like fuck these people.
Days when there are days, I think there are days when everybody's brain
Totally.
and,
Right?
but that's the thing, is to allow ourselves to have that human moment and not necessarily act on it, and know that there are other elements that might come up, to allow ourselves to process it without shame, without beating ourselves up, being like, oh yeah, I'm having a human moment. And maybe it isn't. I don't know. I'm just going to wait and see.
Yeah.
Pick a moment to allow it and then make a decision about it.
Yeah, exactly. And also like your feelings are valid. And if that anger comes up, like for me, that anger came from, I felt like he was coming to the conversation from a place of not trusting me. And so I felt like his questions were like from that place. And so what I came to was like, I deserve to be trusted, or I deserve to have people like see the best in me. And that was something that I came to. And I was like, oh, that's something I actually needed to remind myself of, and like have that. Yeah. And then I came back with, something that reflected that new awareness that I had. So yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So this has been such a lovely conversation.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
One thing I want to say about the community piece before we hop off is because you asked me how things are going with that. So I'm finding now that I feel a lot less like I have rigid boundaries around community. Like I can have conversations with people worrying less about, oh, they're gonna like trauma dump onto me, or they're gonna like emotionally whatever, they're gonna go into like a big story and I'm gonna be stuck there for 20 minutes and whatever. So I feel a lot more just at ease in setting boundaries, and also knowing that I'm valuable in community, whatever community that is, and that people generally want to be accommodating and want to do better and want to learn.
Yeah.
Especially being like a Black trans human, that's been super challenging for me to really come to and trust in.
Yeah. But again, it goes back to safety. And there are a lot of reasons to not feel safe.
Totally. And even just being in a lot of queer spaces and Pride, there were times where I didn't feel safe for different reasons.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And knowing that, oh, it's not about the demographic necessarily, which I think a lot of people get wrong, or a lot of people have a misunderstanding around. It's like, oh, well, if I'm queer and I hang out with only queer people, then I'll be safe. It's like, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not necessarily true. And I went through a similar thing when I was like learning about white supremacy and stuff. I wanted to spend a lot of time with Black people, which I think was important at the time because I wasn't
Mhm.
spending enough time with Black people. But it's knowing that, like, there are shitty people from every demographic, and there are awesome people from every demographic. And it's not about that. It's about like who can I connect with in whatever way that we're supposed to connect.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you ever think about creating safety or feel safe, or what fuels your ability to feel safe around any type of person now?
I think just being okay with any outcome. And I often, like, as a performer too, I rehearse different outcomes. Like I might say a poem and someone will be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And then just like, thinking about how would I deal with that? I think that's a big thing with HSPs too, is that kind of like rehearsal or thought around, or openness around whatever outcome might happen, and some thought around what you can do in that.
Yes, I love
Yeah.
that. That's so good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's wrap up with a little bit of just talking about your work with highly sensitive persons.
Oh yeah,
Just
totally.
like delve into that just a little bit. Who comes to you? Why? What's the work that you do? And what is the result?
Yeah, totally. So I work with multi-talented HSP creatives, and I help them with overwhelm, burnout, because often they have lots of different projects on the go. They have lots of things that they want to pursue. And also, as highly sensitive people, the world itself can be really overwhelming and overstimulating. So we work with, like, how do we balance all of these different projects and endeavors that we want to do without overloading our systems?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, where can the listeners find you if they want to connect with you, if they want to learn more about your work? You just give us your handles.
Yeah. So on Instagram, I'm Coco Madari, CocoMadari. And same thing with Facebook. It's just Coco Madari, and you can add me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram, and there you'll be able to find some of my music as well, and my podcast and stuff like that.
What's the name of the podcast?
It's called Do Epic Shit.
All right.
Yeah.
Do it. Thank you, Coco, for being here, for sharing your story, for being so open. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Listeners, thank you for being here and spending your time with us. We appreciate that time and attention, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening today. If you are ready to get married after divorce, I want to invite you to download my free 8-video training specifically designed to help divorced women date with ease and get married again. Head over to shadecurry.com to get started. That's SADECURRY.com. I'll see you inside.